Karen Dahlman.
And I'm Marla Martinson, and we are so happy to be back with you. Thanks for tuning in. We've got an awesome subject today, don't we, Karen?
We do. So I had somebody write to me on the the YouTube channel, and they wanted to know, can you communicate with spirits that have moved on and reincarnated? Now, this is a very interesting topic because it gets us into thinking about ourselves as a multidimensional being.
Yes.
So, and I have done this before with the board, and I know Marla has spoken to some spirit personalities to the board that have supposedly been dead for many, many, many years.
Yes.
And they obviously have moved on by now. And I've done the same thing too with the power of regression therapy, hypnosis, but also with the board. And the answer to this is yes, you can. You can communicate with those deceased personalities. That's part of the soul. And it's moved on, maybe reincarnated. So the soul's moved on and reincarnated. But think of it this way, you guys. Think of the Akashic records. Think of it like the book of life. Think of how everything that's supposedly is recorded, that's happened, that's happening now, that's going to happen. And so it's always in existence on some multidimensional level. And so think of it like a diamond. A diamond that's been cut has all these facets to it. And so each personality that we have is like a facet on that diamond. And so, yes, you can tune into that energy, that frequency. It exists somewhere in time and space, and you can communicate with it. It's that personality that that person used to be before they moved on to another personality. Now, this is where it gets really, really cool, too. You can follow that personality. And I've done this a lot in hypnosis and regression work. You can follow that personality, and this is so they lived a life, let's say they were a peddler in a life or something, and they move on and reincarnate and they become a mercenary, or then in another life they become a soldier. And so you start to follow this. You can actually communicate, follow the path, and communicate with each of those personalities. Now, of course, you have to have permission to do this. I know. You have the permission to do this. They have to be willing to want to communicate with you. I find it's easier to, if somebody's deceased in your family, maybe some great distant grandfather, grandmother, that might be a possibility. They may have already reincarnated, but you probably will be able to. They'll probably be open to you because you're part of the family. You're part of the lineage, ancestral lineage and the bloodline, so that might be easier. But definitely try it. I know, Marla, you spoke with Edgar Allan Poe before, and
Yeah,
right?
he has a poem I added in my book. The Buddha made me do it, and I added
That's
a
right.
poem that Edgar Allan Poe wrote through me. So, I'm still always so amazed because I have no proof it's really him, but I've communicated with him on the board a few times, and it's interesting. I've asked on the board if my dad has because he's come through, if he's reincarnated, and he said no. Now my brother, he's many times said yes, he has reincarnated, and he's only been gone since like 2004. So I could try it with my brother and see if his new existence can communicate with me or something.
I definitely try it. And you guys that are listening too, have you experimented with this? There's other kinds of experiments we can do too. We're really pushing the boundaries of consciousness of what we believe consciousness is. This is where this tool can get really creative and really cool. We're only limited by our own thoughts about these things. And in fact, I've tried so many of these experiments before. It always amazes me on how many different levels we can use this tool. So, for example, have you explored like telepathic communication with the board? So what we've done, we've had circles where people have come over, and I'll ask them to ask a question to the spirit guides in their head only. Ask it in your head. Don't speak it out loud. And inevitably, it answers every time. It picks up on something they're asking. And often I find when there's a group of people in the room and somebody's asking a question, they may jump in and answer that question, but they go back to the general conversation they were having with everybody, because they try to communicate with everybody that's in the room. And that means whether you're thinking subconsciously or subconsciously or unconsciously, but also what you're consciously thinking. They usually address that first, but they will address those things that are underlying. So that's kind of another cool experiment to try. Have you worked on that before, Marla? Tried that?
No. So I'm going to try that. That sounds pretty cool. And another thing that I want to try that you and I were discussing is connecting with ourselves on simultaneous
Yes.
timelines, because
Yes.
we hear that time is like a circle. It's everything happening at once. So that our souls are in another body somewhere living right now too.
Yeah, Yeah, it's the whole idea of parallel universes,
Yes.
parallel worlds, parallel lives. Absolutely, try to explore that, you guys.
I did that at, I think it was Linda Salvin's house, and I did it, and we talked, the person
Yes.
that we talked to on the board all the time, and I asked about myself, and I wrote it down. I don't remember all the details, but supposedly I'm, I think, a teenager living in New York right now.
That's
and
right.
I remember, and I think you were there when we were asking.
Yes, I mean, you don't know. You might as well try it. I mean, you can't always validate all this, but you get some really interesting information comes forward. Another thing we can do too is think of this. We've already talked about this before, but you can talk to your higher self, which is that part of you that doesn't exist in your body that really connects you back to source energy. It's the greater part of you that really is more all-knowing and really wise, and you can tap into that. Now, you can also think of this. You can tap into that person you were when you were 5. When you were 10, when you were 15, and communicate with these aspects of yourself at different time frames in your life. Now, I did this a lot as a therapist with hypnosis, and I did a lot with regression work. And the idea was to follow back whatever the problem was they were having or the issue in their life they wanted to get help with. We'd follow it back to where it started, and often we'd find it started in other lives. So we go right on into their lives. I wasn't going to judge where they're going because you get the information. But that they also would go into different times, period of their life. So it might have been when they were 3 or 4 and something really terrible happened to them, or maybe their parent died at the age of 6, and then that left some kind of grief for them. And so you really can visit yourself, communicate with those parts of yourself back into the past, but also into the future. Now, I've had people write to me and tell me there was a time in my life when things were going really badly, and I just needed some kind of solace. And so they said, there was this voice that would talk to me. And I had somebody write to me and say, I realized finally it was my future self, as I am now as a 50-year-old person, communicating with that 2 or 3-year-old, telling that little child that everything will be okay because they'd suffered some great loss. So there's so many different ways that we can approach this tool, and it's beyond just talking to the deceased. It allows us to really explore all these different areas of consciousness and awareness and being and simultaneous being, and go into the future, go into the past. And that's the same thing hypnosis does, but this tool can also do it for you.
That is so cool. I did also have one time. I love Clara Bow. She was a 1920s
Yes.
film star, and she came on and said, "Oh, Marla, it's meeting you. It's just swell." And that's how they talked in the 20s. It's just swell. And I said, "What kind of car did you drive around in Hollywood when you were a star?" And she said, "Kissel." And she did. She drove a Kissel.
Oh, my gosh.
So that was kind of cool. And I'd like to connect with her again. I haven't. I mean, there's so many people that I've connected with, and I've got to follow up on.
Well, did she get any idea that she'd already moved on and reincarnated?
I didn't talk to her that long, Yeah, I've got it. Sometimes my back will start hurting, or I get hot, using the board because I do it alone. And so I'll be like, I'm tired. And so I'll go off the board. I won't stay on it too long. But,
well, there's you get on this tool and you use it. I know you, like Marla, and me myself, we usually talk to our guides, but there's so many other levels of communication that can happen, and it's really fun to explore these things. So we just wanted to share some of those with you today, ask you what types of conversations, communications you've been having. Have you tried these experiments? And if so, let us know below.
Let us know. Thanks for watching, you guys. We love you. Thank you.
Bye.